76 kilograms is falling vertically in a still air. At time t is equals to 0, the skydiver opens his parachute. The figure shows the speed time graph for a skydiver at time t is equals to 0. Using figure 1.1, determine the deceleration immediately. So we want to calculate a deceleration. So we can take for this part. So if we start around, like example, this value, we can take any 2 points within this region to work out the deceleration. Each box is representing 2. So this one is 42, 4, 6, 8, 10. So this looks like 58. And this one is 40, so it will be 58. To calculate the deceleration, it will be 58 minus 40 divided by time interval. So what is the time interval? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 boxes. Each box is representing 0.1, so 5 boxes will be 0.5. So it will be 18 divided by 0.5. So 18 divided by 0.5, the deceleration is 36 meter per second square. The second part, the force due to air resistance acting on the skydiver immediately when he opened the parachute. So we want to calculate the force due to air resistance. So example, if this was a skydiver falling, the weight of the skydiver is acting downward. And we need the air resistance. The weight of the skydiver is acting downward and air resistance is acting upward. The force of the air is acting upward. And the result of these two forces will be equal to the resultant force, which is the force of the, so we have the formula F is equals to ma. We already calculated the acceleration, that was 36 meter per deceleration, 36 meter per second square. And the mass of a skydiver was 76. So 76 multiplied by 36. This will give us the resultant force. So 76 times 36, that is the resultant force, which is 2,736 Newton. But in the question, we don't need resultant force, we need force due to air resistance. So force due to air resistance, weight is acting down, air resistance is acting upward. So F, the resultant force, is weight minus the air resistance. But if we need air resistance, because the weight is acting downward, air resistance is acting upward. So resultant force F is equals to weight minus air resistance. So if we need air resistance, which will be equal to, as the candidate, as the parachutist open the parachute, so its weight, which is acting downward, and how we'll get the weight of this? Weight is mass multiplied by gravity. So mass is 76, and what about the gravity is 10. So it will be equal to 760 newtons. And because he is decelerating, as the object is decelerating, it means that air resistance is more. So instead of writing W minus A, I can write A minus W, the resultant force. Why? Because as he's decelerating, so it means the air resistance is more than the weight. So air resistance minus the weight is equals to the resultant force. So if we need the air resistance, so the resultant force we already calculated, which was 2,736. Air resistance we don't know, and the weight, which is mass into gravity, 760. 760 subtracted, other side will be added. So 2,736 plus 760. So when we add 760 plus 2736, this will give us 3496 Newton. So the air resistance which is acting equals to 3496, or I can say 3500 if I round off. The next part, explain in terms of forces acting on the skydiver his motion between 0 to 6 seconds. So from 0 to 6 seconds, initially the air resistance is more than, at this point when he opened the parachute, the air resistance is more than the weight. So he will decelerate because the resultant force is upward. So as he slows down, as the speed decreases, so air resistance will also decrease, and air resistance again balance with the weight at this point. So when the air resistance balances with the weight, that time there is no resultant force. Air resistance and weight are equal. So that time the resultant force is 0. So acceleration is 0, and he moves with a constant speed. So explain in terms of forces acting. So first we'll mention the air resistance is more than the weight, so the speed decrease or decelerate, and then as the speed decreases, the air resistance will also decrease, and eventually it balances with the weight. So he will move with a constant speed. The question is explained in terms of forces. Some of the students answered this question, but they did not even use the term force. That's why you will not score a mark. You have to use the term forces or how the forces are acting. So first, air resistance more than the weight. So there is a resultant force opposite to direction of the motion. The parachutist will decelerate or speed decreases. So when speed decreases, the air resistance will also decrease. It balances with weight. So no resultant force. As a result, when there is no resultant force, so the acceleration will be 0. Explain why opening a parachute cannot reduce the speed of a skydiver to 0. So when the skydiver opens the parachute, why the speed cannot be 0? Because when the forces are balanced, the object was moving. If the object is stationary and the force is balanced, the object will remain at rest. But because it's a moving object and then the forces are balanced, that's why it will continue to move with a constant speed. It will not be 0. So when the object was moving, or the object was moving, or the parachutist or the skydiver was moving, when the forces balance with each other, that is why the speed can't be 0. So if it's a moving object and the forces are balanced, it will continue to move with a constant speed. If it is a stationary object and the forces are balanced, it means that it will remain at rest. Question 2, figure 2.1 shows a wooden trolley of mass 1.2 kilogram at rest on a rough surface. A trolley has a mass of 0.52 grams. So the SI unit of the mass is kilogram. You have to convert the mass into kilogram. Here it is given in gram, so it must be in kg. So we have to divide by 1000, which will make it 0.00052 kilogram, because we have to convert into kg. The first part, calculate the impulse exerted on the trolley. Impulse is a change in momentum. The trolley moves with the initial speed. Look, there was a ball moving towards the trolley, and initially the trolley was at rest. Then when the ball hits the trolley, dimension, the ball embeds itself in a wood. So it means the ball stick to this trolley and they move together with a speed of 0.065 meter per second. Impulse is a change in momentum, so it is mv minus mu. For the trolley, the mass of a trolley is 1.2 and the speed at which the trolley moved, that is 0.065. Minus the mass of a trolley is 1.2 and initial speed of a trolley is 0. As I mentioned in the beginning, that it was initial, the trolley was at rest and it started to move when the ball hits the trolley. Here the trolley was at rest, but move when the ball hits. So 1.2 multiplied by 0.065, this will give us the impulse, which is 0.078. Newton second or kilogram meter per second. Then the speed of the ball as it hits the trolley. So when two objects collide, they will have the same impulse. Impulse of object 1 will be same as impulse of object 2 whenever there is a collision. Or you can also use the concept that the total momentum before collision is equals to total momentum after collision. So you can use the conservation of a momentum here. According to conservation of momentum, the total momentum before for the collision will be equal to total momentum after. Or you can also use the impulse before, the change in impulse of object 1 will be same as change in momentum of object 1 will be same as object 2, or they will have the same impulse, we can say. So we need the velocity speed here. Using a momentum before equal to momentum after. So first, a ball, we need the speed of the ball. So we need the initial speed of the ball, which we don't know. We say that speed is x, and the mass of the ball is 0.52 gram, but it should be in kilogram. So momentum before collision. Once, so ball was moving with a velocity or speed of x and its mass is 0.00052. So 0.00052 times x plus the momentum of the trolley, because the trolley is initially at rest. So its momentum is 0. Mass is there 1.2, but its velocity is 0. After collision, both move with the same speed. That is 0.065. So the final momentum will be mass of a ball, which is 0.00052 times the speed of the ball 0.065 plus the mass of the trolley, it is 1.2, and the speed is also 0.065. Because both move with the same speed, that's why they have this 0.065 is the speed for ball and a trolley after collision. So this 0.00052 is multiplied, other side it will be divided. So we will solve 0.00052 times 0.065 plus 1.2 into 0.065, and that is divided by 0.00052. So this will give us the value of x, which is a speed that will come out about 150 meter per second. So the ball initially was moving at a speed of 150 meter per second. So whenever two objects collide with each other, you will always use the conservation of momentum, and the total momentum before collision will always be equal to total momentum after the collision. Then as the trolley moves across the rough surface, it slows down and stops. Explain in terms of work done and energy change. Again, for this question, this is a straightforward question, but student did not use the term energy, like which forms of energies are produced. So basically the work is done to move on the rough surface, which transform into kinetic and heat energy. So there's a work done on the trolley. That work done is used converting to kinetic because the trolley moves and it is on the rough surface. So due to friction, there will be a heat as well. Explain in terms of molecule why liquids are difficult to compress. Why liquids are difficult to compress? Because the particles in the liquid are close to each other and they have repulsion. So when we talk about the compression, we'll use the term repulsion. Like in liquid, the particles are closer. As a result, when these particles are closer, they're repelling each other more. But in gases, the particles are far away, so the repulsion is minimum. Figure 3.1 shows a device that is used with liquid pressure to lift a heavy box. The box are lifted by pumping oil into a cylinder. The force upward on the piston due to the oil. So there is a force of the oil and there is a force of the air. And combined, the resultant force is 8,800 Newton. Means force of oil is up, force of air is down. So we can say the force of oil minus the force of air because they're in the opposite direction and the result is 8,800 Newton. The pressure of the air is 1 exponent 5 Pascal and the cross-sectional area is 0.016. Calculate the pressure of the oil. So to calculate the pressure is force of the oil divided by area. We have the area, but we don't know the force of the oil. To get the force of oil, we should know the force of air. How to get the force of air? Pressure is force over area, so force is pressure multiplied by area. So pressure of the air is 1 exponent 5, which is atmospheric pressure, multiplied by area is how much? 0.016. So when we multiply, the pressure is 1 exponent 5 and the area is 0.016. This will give us how much force is applied by the air. So the force of the air will come out as 1,600 Newton. So 1,600 Newton is the force of the air. Now we'll find the force of the oil. How to get the force of oil? So force of oil minus force of air, which is 1,600 equal to 8,800 Newton. Minus 1,600, so it will move other side. It will be added. The force of the oil will be 8,800 plus 1,600. This will give us 10,400 Newton. So the force of the oil is 10,400 Newton. Then we want to calculate the pressure. Pressure is force over area. So 10,400 divided by area of the piston, which is 0.16. So it will be 6.5 into 10 to the power 5 Pascal. So first we calculated the force of air and then we add the force of air to the total force to get the force of oil. And as a result, we calculated the pressure exerted by the oil. As the box are lifted, the depth of the oil increases. Explain why the pump must exert an increasing pressure on the oil as the depth of oil increases. So as this one is rising, there is more oil, and as a result, what will happen? So now there will be an extra pressure as the oil rises. So there will be a pressure due to oil as well. First, there's the pressure due to air from the top, but as the oil rises, the oil will also exert pressure downward. That's why the pump has to apply a greater force to push this oil. So pressure due to oil increases as its depth increases. So to keep the force constant or to apply a constant force, the pressure of the pump or pressure by the pump should also increases. The pressure of oil increase with depth, or you can say height. So the pump should apply more force or apply more pressure on oil to lift the weight. So just one reason why the force of 8,800 Newton cannot lift the box of weight 8,800 Newton. So what is the reason? Like when we apply a force of 8,800 Newton, like there's a resultant force of 8,800 Newton upward. There is a force of air, there is a force of oil, and the result of these two forces 8,800 Newton. And if there is an object placed 8,800 Newton, this force cannot lift this. Why this force cannot lift? Because if I say I have an object which is 2 Newton, so weight is 2 Newton. If I apply an upward force of 2 Newton, so I cannot lift it up, I can only hold it because now there is no resultant force. So if you want to lift it up, we have to create a resultant force upward. So we have to apply a greater force than the weight, or we have to apply force more than 8,800 Newton. Because 8,800 Newton is just to balance it. To lift it up, we need more than 8,800 Newton. And second thing, there is also a weight for this piston as well. So we have to lift a piston. So practically, the force should be more than 8,800 Newton. So 8,800 Newton is a force balance the weight. So we need greater force to create an resultant force. So we can create a resultant force by applying a force more than 8,800 Newtons. Then question for aluminum saucepan with a plastic handle. State why a pan is made from aluminum but handle. So because aluminum is a conductor, allow the heat energy to pass. The aluminum is a conductor which allows the heat energy to pass. That's why it is made up of. The pan is made up of aluminum and plastic handle, so that it's an insulator, so we can lift it up. Hot plate is switched on and the temperature of a water increase. The internal energy of a water increase. In terms of molecule, what is meant by increase in internal energy? Look, internal energy is a sum of kinetic and potential. So when the temperature increases, the kinetic energy increases. So particles move faster. That's why the internal energy will also increase. And explain in terms of atomic lattice and electrons how the thermal energy is transferred through aluminum. So you have to explain the method of a conduction. Conduction happen or conduction occur. Then lattice vibrate and transfer energy from hot region to cold region, and electrons also move through the lattice, which transfer the energy by collision with the metal lying within the lattice. Eventually, the water reaches a boiling point. The thermal energy from a hot plate is still being transferred. In terms of molecule effect of this, so what happened in a boiling? The energy is used to break the intermolecular forces. So the particle, the molecules can escape. But the kinetic energy remains same. Like the kinetic energy does not change when the state is changing, the temperature remains unchanged. Then the mass of a water decreases by 0.1 in 300 seconds, the specific latent heat. Calculate the rate at which, the rate means power. So we need a power. So first we need energy. The formula latent heat is energy divided by mass. So energy is latent heat multiplied by mass. So latent heat is how much? That is 2.3 into 10 to the power 6 multiplied by mass is 0.11. This will give us energy. But we need weight of energy means power. So power is energy divided by time. So after finding the energy, we will divide by time to get the power. So 0.11 multiplied by 2.3 exponent 6. This will give us 2.53 exponent 5. And that is divided by 300. So 2.53 into 10 to the power 5 joules. And then 2.53 into 10 to the power 5 divided by the time, which is 300. So that will be 843 watts. That's a power. Figure 5.1 shows the structure of a liquid in a glass thermometer. The bulb of a thermometer is placed in a beaker of warm water. A liquid expands and moves. In terms of molecule, why the liquid expands when heated? So in terms of molecule, the particle gain energy, they move faster and move away from each other. And they move away from each other. So the substance expand, and expansion of a gas is more than liquid, and liquid expand more than solid. Explain in terms of molecules why a liquid expand more than solid. So a stronger force of attraction is there in solid, or weaker force of attraction in liquid, you can mention. So small amount of energy can separate the particles. So weak attraction between the molecules. So a small amount of energy can move the particles away from each other. A second thermometer is a large bulb. So if you use a large bulb, it means it will have more liquid, so sensitivity will increase. So it will be more sensitive. Sensitivity can be changed by using a large bulb using a narrow capillary. And what is the reason? Because greater volume of liquid, so it will have more expansion. And how the range of a second thermometer compare if we are using the two thermometers of same size. One is more sensitive because it is having a large bulb. So one is more sensitive, which is having a large bulb. Another one is less sensitive. So the one which is more sensitive, greater spacing between the marking, like say 10, 11, and the one which is less sensitive, small space between the marking, so it can record more numbers. So what will happen to the range? How the range of a second thermometer, because this is a second thermometer, as I mentioned, the second thermometer is having a large bulb. So second thermometer will have a small range, or the range of a second thermometer will be smaller as compared to the first one. State one, everyday problem that result in a thermal expansion. Thermal expansion. So this is, you can write any general answer note, not a specific example you have to write. For example, bridges buckles or metal buckles because of the hot weather. So we should have expansion gap should be there placed between the metal so that they cannot buckle. In question 6, figure is a full scale diagram. On a figure, mark a compression. Compression means the particles are closer. So where the particles are closer, that is compression. And where the particles are away, that is a rarefaction. But we have to just mark two compressions. The speed of a sound is 330. We have to measure the wavelength. How to get the wavelength? The distance between the two successive compressions. The distance between the two successive compressions, that's called wavelength, or two successive rarefactions. So we measure using a ruler, we'll measure. So say this is 5 centimeter. So we'll convert into meter, divide by 100, so 0.05 meter. So we have the wavelength, we have the speed, so we multiply V equals F lambda. So F is equals to B divided by lambda, we'll get the frequency. So 330 divided by 0.05. So this will give us a frequency. Some student did not convert this into meter, they use same centimeter. But you have to convert the SI into SI unit of a length is meter, that's why you have to convert into meters. The wave reaches a barrier. On a figure, the frequency of a wave increases. The frequency increases, the wavelength decreases. So if the wavelength decreases, so it will have a less diffraction. And so how the pattern will change, because smaller wavelengths has less diffraction, or smaller diffraction will be there. As the frequency increase, the wavelength will decrease, so the diffraction will also decrease. And frequency increase means more compression and rarefactions will be there. Frequency is the number of vibrations. So as the frequency of a sound increases, there will be more compressions and rarefactions. In question 7, represent an AC generator. How AC generator works, we will discuss this in a revision class. But the idea is that when we rotate the coil, there's a change in magnetic field which produce EMF. So we have to complete a 2 cycles. So how 2 cycles? So first EMF increase, then decrease. Then it also increase in opposite direction, then decrease. And it continue. So we have to complete for 2 revolutions and mark where it is horizontal. So when it is horizontal, the EMF is maximum. So you can mark with letter P where it is horizontal. I have marked the test papers. I will share today all the test paper along with the mark. State 2 ways the EMF between the terminal X and Y changes. So it will produce higher EMF. And second thing, it will produce more cycles, more vibrations per second. The terminal X and Y are connected to a primary coil. In this question, most of the students did wrong. Basically, the terminal X and Y connected to a primary coil of a transformer. So you have to explain the working of a transformer. Like here between X and Y, we have a transformer. So how the transformer works? AC input produce variable magnetic field. AC input will produce changing magnetic field, variable magnetic field. That will magnetize iron and change in the magnetic field of iron induce EMF in the secondary. So that you have to explain, the 3 marks are for explaining the working of a transformer. Explain why power loss in transmission cable is lower when voltage is high. So high voltage means there will be low current, so less heat is produced, so less amount of energy will be wasted. So for transformer, when we increase the voltage output, the current will decrease. In question 9, students set up the apparatus include a 12 volt and 800 ohm resistor. Complete a figure by placing a thermistor. So thermistor you have to place. This is a circuit symbol for thermistor. A 12 volt battery consists of 8 identical. So a 12 volt battery contains 8 identical. So it will be 12 divided by 8. This will give us the voltage of each cell. That is 1.5. 1.5 volt. Now the reading on the voltmeter is 8. Here this is 8, so it means this will be 4 because this is a voltage divider circuit. So how we can, because it is in series, we have to determine the resistance. To determine the resistance, we need voltage. V is equals to IR, so R is equals to V divided by I. So we have the voltage, we need a current. How to get the current? Because they are in series, so the current in 800 ohm will be same as current in the thermistor. So the current in 800 ohm resistor is voltage V equals IR, so I is equals to V over R. So voltage is 4 and the resistance is 800, so 4 divided by 800 will give us the current, which is 0.005 ampere. So same 0.005 ampere is passing through each. So we have the current now, voltage is 8 in the thermistor and the current is 0.005. So 8 divided by 0.005 will get 1600 ohm. So here 1600 ohm is a resistance. And after few hours, the student noticed that the reading of the voltmeter is greater. So if the reading on the voltmeter increases, it means the resistance here increase. If the voltmeter reading increases, it means the resistance increases. How a thermistor resistance increases? So it means temperature and resistance are inversely proportional for thermistor. If its resistance increases, it means the temperature has decreased. This is for thermistor. So here temperature decreases. That's why the resistance of thermistor increase. So the voltage or the reading of the voltmeter also increases. And question 9, we have to complete the symbol for hydrogen isotope 2,1 and 3,1. So this is 2,1 and this one is 3,1. What is meant by a fusion? Fusion means when the lighter join to form heavy, and as a result release energy, we call nuclear fusion. Then we have to write an equation for nuclear fusion for these two isotopes of the hydrogen. Hydrogen 1,1 and hydrogen 2,1. So hydrogen 2,1 and 3,1. They mentioned it produces a neutron. So neutron, this is 0 and 1. What other particle will be there? Look, the total number in the superscript and the superscript numbers 2 plus 1, 3. So here it is 0. So sorry, 2 plus 3, 5. So here we have 0. So we should have, for a neutron, it is 1 and 0. 1 is up and 0 is down. But mass is 1 and charge is 0. That's why 1, 0. So the total number on the superscript, that is 2 plus 3, 5. So we should have 5 here. 1 is already, so we should have 4. And down the subscript number, 1 plus 1, 2. So here we have 0, so it should be 2. So which particle is having a nucleon number 4 and atomic number of proton number 2? So that is alpha particle, or we can also say helium nuclei. So this is how we complete the equation for a nuclear fusion. The nuclear fusion in the sun is a source of most but not all. Say two resources from which nuclear fusion in the sun is not the source. Like solar energy is not there as a source of that, can be tidal or geothermal. Tidal energy is due to attraction of the moon, and geothermal is due to the heat of the earth. So this was the last question from this Feb March 2021 session.